Let me ask you something. Have you ever laid in bed next to someone and felt completely alone? Like you could disappear tomorrow and they'd just find someone else to fill your spot? Yeah, that feeling. It's torture. And here's what nobody's told you. That feeling isn't coming from them. It's coming from a belief you have that's so automatic, so deep, you don't even notice it anymore. But once you see it, everything changes. And I'm going to show you exactly what it is. Listen, by the time we're done here, you're going to understand exactly why you feel replaceable, and it's got nothing to do with your worth or your partner's commitment. I'm going to show you the specific irrational belief that's creating this feeling, how to spot it in real time, and most importantly, how to dispute it so you can finally feel secure without needing constant reassurance. This isn't about positive thinking or affirmations. This is about changing the actual thinking that's making you miserable. Look, I know what this feels like. You're walking on eggshells. You're reading into every text message. Every time they're quiet, you think they're losing interest. Every time they mention another person, you feel that panic in your chest. And the worst part? You know you're being irrational, but you can't stop. That makes it even worse, doesn't it? You're suffering, and you're beating yourself up for suffering. I've spent over 40 years helping people untangle this exact problem. And here's what I've learned. The people who feel most replaceable aren't the ones who have the worst partners. They're the ones with the most rigid demands about how relationships must work. Once you see this pattern in yourself, you can't unsee it. And that's when real change happens. Right now, you probably think you need your partner to change, to be more affectionate, more present, more something. But what if I told you that you could feel completely secure even if they don't change at all? What if the problem isn't that you're replaceable, but that you're demanding unconditional love and absolute certainty, two things that literally don't exist? Stay with me here, because this might make you uncomfortable at first, but it's going to set you free. Most relationship advice tells you to communicate better or set boundaries. That's fine. But if you don't fix the irrational beliefs driving your insecurity, you'll just find new things to worry about. We're going deeper. We're going to the source. So here's what's really happening. The feeling of replaceability, that awful feeling that you're just a warm body they could swap out for anyone else, it comes from an irrational demand. And the demand sounds like this. My partner must love me completely and never waver, or I'm worthless and replaceable. Do you hear that? Must. That's the word that's destroying you. Let me explain what I mean by musts. When you tell yourself that something must happen, or should happen, or has to happen, you're setting yourself up for emotional hell. Because reality doesn't care about your musts. Reality just is. Your partner is going to have moments where they're distracted. They're going to have days where they're not thinking about you every second. They're going to notice other people exist. And if you're demanding that they must never do these things, you're demanding the impossible. And then you make yourself miserable when you don't get it. Here's the difference. When you say, I prefer that my partner texts me back quickly, that's a preference. That's rational. But when you say, they should text me back immediately, or they must respond right now, or they have to prioritize me every single second, you've just created a demand. And demands create disturbance. Preferences create disappointment at worst. Demands create devastation. And here's where it gets really messed up. You've linked your entire self-worth to your partner's behavior. You're telling yourself, if they don't choose me every single moment, I must be defective. That's insane. Do you hear how crazy that is? Your worth as a human being doesn't change based on whether someone texts you back in 5 minutes or 5 hours. But you've made that connection in your head, and now you're suffering because of it. Let me be really clear about something. No one can guarantee they'll never leave. No one can promise you absolute certainty. You want that guarantee. I get it. We all want it. But demanding that guarantee is demanding the impossible. And then you sit there torturing yourself because you can't get something that doesn't exist. That's what I call masturbation. It's making you miserable. And you know what the real kicker is? This belief, this demand that you must be irreplaceable or you're worthless, it actually makes you less attractive. It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you're constantly seeking reassurance, when you're checking their phone, when you're panicking every time they're late or quiet or busy, you become exhausting to be around. And that neediness, that desperation, it pushes people away. You're creating the very outcome you're terrified of. I once worked with a client who was convinced her husband was going to leave her for someone younger, prettier, more interesting. And she demanded that he prove to her every single day that he wouldn't. Do you know what happened? He got tired. Not because he stopped loving her, but because nothing he did was ever enough. She demanded certainty. And when he couldn't give it to her, because nobody can, she took that as proof that she was right. It's a trap. And you're in that trap right now. So now you're probably thinking, okay, Albert, I see the demand, but I can't help it. These thoughts just appear, right? Well, let me show you where these thoughts actually come from, because once you understand the source, you can start fighting back. I want to teach you something I call the ABC model. This is the foundation of everything. A stands for activating event. That's what happens. B stands for belief. That's what you think about what happens. And C stand for consequence. That's how you feel and what you do. Now here's the part most people get wrong. They think a cause is C. They think the event causes the feeling. But that's not how it works. It's A plus B equals C. The event plus your belief about the event creates the consequence. Let me give you a real example. Let's say your partner doesn't text you back for 3 hours. That's A, the activating event. Now, if your belief, your B, is they must respond immediately, and if they don't, it means they don't care and I'm replaceable, then your C, your consequence, is going to be anxiety, jealousy, feeling worthless. You're going to spiral. You're going to check your phone 50 times. You're going to imagine them with someone else. You're going to make yourself sick. But what if your belief was different? What if your B was, I prefer a response, but they're probably busy and their texting speed doesn't determine my worth? Then your C would be mild disappointment at most, maybe a little annoyed, but your self-worth stays stable. You don't spiral. Same event, different belief, completely different emotional outcome. Do you see how powerful this is? You can't always control A. You can't control what your partner does or doesn't do. And you can't immediately control C. You can't just decide to feel differently. But you can dispute and change B. You can change what you believe about what happens. And that changes everything. Let me give you the most common irrational beliefs people have in relationships. See if any of these sound familiar. I need their approval to feel okay. If they don't prioritize me, I'm worthless. I can't stand the uncertainty. It would be awful if they left. These are all irrational. And I'm going to tell you why. You don't need anyone's approval to feel okay. You might want it. You might strongly prefer it. But you don't need it. You were okay before you met this person. You'll be okay if they leave. That's just a fact. And when you tell yourself you need their approval, you make yourself dependent. You give away all your power. If they don't prioritize me, I'm worthless. Where's the logic in that? How does someone else's behavior determine your entire value as a human being? It doesn't. You're rating your entire self based on one person's feelings or actions. That's crazy. You can rate your behaviors if you want to improve them, but yourself? Always acceptable. Always worthwhile. Just because you're alive and human. I can't stand the uncertainty. Yes, you can. You're standing it right now. You don't like it. It's uncomfortable, but you can stand it. People stand all kinds of uncomfortable things. You're not going to die from uncertainty. You're going to feel anxious, and that's okay. Anxiety isn't dangerous. It's just unpleasant. It would be awful if they left. No, it wouldn't. It would be sad. It would be disappointing. It would be painful. But awful? Awful means nothing could be worse. Awful means you couldn't survive it. And that's not true. You would survive. Millions of people go through breakups and survive. Some of them even thrive afterwards. So stop catastrophizing. Stop turning pain into apocalypse. Let me tell you about 2 people whose partners both came home late without calling. Person A has irrational beliefs. They immediately think they're cheating on me, they don't respect me, I'm not important to them. This is awful. I can't stand this. They spiral into panic. They assume the worst. They feel worthless. Person B has rational beliefs. They think this is annoying, I wish they'd call, but maybe something came up, I'll talk to them about it when they get home. Same event, different beliefs. Person A is having a breakdown. Person B is mildly irritated. Which person do you want to be? This is what I mean when I say your beliefs create your suffering. Not the events, the beliefs. And once you get this, really get this, you have so much more control than you think. Now you're starting to see it, right? Your beliefs are creating your suffering. But I know what you're thinking. Okay, Albert, I get intellectually, but how do I actually change these beliefs when they feel so automatic? That's exactly what we're doing next. Disputing your irrational beliefs. This is where the transformation happens. This is the work. You can't just know this stuff. You have to actively challenge your thinking every single time it goes irrational. And I'm going to show you how. I use 3 main questions to dispute irrational beliefs. Where's the evidence? Where's the logic? And is it helpful? Let's apply these to the belief that you must be irreplaceable or you're worthless. Where's the evidence? Where's the proof that you must be irreplaceable? Show me the law of the universe that says your partner must never consider anyone else attractive or interesting. Show me the evidence that if they could theoretically replace you, that makes you worthless. There is no evidence. You made this rule up, and now you're suffering because reality doesn't follow your made-up rule. Where's the logic? How does it logically follow that someone else's feelings determine your entire worth? If your partner loves you, you're valuable. If they don't, you're worthless. Where's the logic? Your worth doesn't change based on external circumstances. You're a human being. You have inherent value just by existing. Rating yourself based on someone else's opinion is illogical. It doesn't make sense. Is it helpful? Is this belief getting you what you want? Is demanding that you must be irreplaceable making you feel more secure? No, it's making you anxious. It's making you needy. It's pushing your partner away. So even if we pretend it's logical, which it isn't, it's still not helpful. Let's get really specific. When you feel replaceable, what are you actually demanding? You're demanding that your partner never finds anyone else attractive, that they never get bored, that they never have doubts, that they choose you with absolute certainty every moment of every day. Do you see how impossible that is? You're demanding that another human being stop being human. Here's the rational reframe. You want to be chosen. You want to be valued. You want to be prioritized. That's preferable. That's a reasonable desire. But demanding it as a must creates suffering. So the rational belief is, I strongly prefer to be in a relationship where I'm valued and chosen. And if I'm not getting that, I can communicate my needs, and if that doesn't work, I can choose to leave. But my worth doesn't depend on whether this particular person chooses me. Let me teach you something that's going to sound radical. You need to accept uncertainty, not just tolerate it. Accept it. Say to yourself, I don't know if this relationship will last forever. Nobody does. And that's okay. I can handle uncertainty. It's uncomfortable, but I can stand it. This is not pessimism. This is reality. No one knows what's going to happen. And demanding that you know, demanding that your partner guarantee the future, is demanding the impossible. And here's the nuclear option. Unconditional self-acceptance. This is the ultimate solution. You accept yourself regardless of whether you're chosen, valued, or kept. You say to yourself, I am worthwhile simply because I'm alive and human, not because of what anyone else thinks of me. When you really believe this, when you really accept yourself unconditionally, other people's opinions lose their power over you. You'd still prefer to be loved, but you don't need it to feel okay. Let me walk you through a practical exercise. Next time you feel replaceable, stop. Don't just react. Stop and ask yourself, what am I demanding right now? Write it down. My partner must blank, or else I'm blank. Get specific, then dispute it. Where's the evidence this must be true? Where's the logic? Is it helpful? Then reframe it. I'd prefer blank, but if it doesn't happen, I'm still acceptable as a person. Do this every single time. It's going to feel awkward at first. You're not going to believe the reframe immediately. That's okay. Repetition creates belief. Keep doing it. I worked with a guy who used to check his girlfriend's social media 10 times a day. Every like, every comment, every picture, he analyzed it for signs she was losing interest. He was making himself crazy. When I taught him to dispute, he started catching himself. He'd feel the urge to check, and he'd stop and say, where's the evidence that I must monitor her every move? There isn't any. Is this helpful? No, it's destroying my peace of mind. What's the rational belief? I prefer she only has eyes for me, but she's allowed to have a life and interact with people, and that doesn't threaten my worth. Within a few months, he barely thought about it. Not because his girlfriend changed, because he changed the way he thought. You're not going to feel better until you think better. That's just the truth. You can distract yourself. You can seek reassurance. But until you change the beliefs creating the disturbance, you're going to keep suffering. So dispute, dispute, dispute. That's your job. All right, so you're learning to dispute. But let's get real for a second. What about when your partner actually is being distant or pulling away? What if you're not just being irrational? Let me show you how to handle that without losing yourself. Sometimes your partner is being distant. Sometimes they're being inconsiderate or disconnected. Rational thinking doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means not catastrophizing about reality. So first, you need to reality test. Ask yourself, is there actual evidence of a problem? Or am I mind reading? Am I interpreting their tired face as them losing interest? Am I assuming their quietness means they don't love me? Or is there real, concrete evidence that something's wrong? If there is real evidence, here's how a rational person handles it. They say, my partner has been distant lately. I don't like this. I'm going to communicate clearly about what I need. That's it. They don't spiral. They don't catastrophize. They address the problem directly. Compare that to the irrational response. My partner has been distant, which proves they don't love me, which means I'm worthless and this is awful and I can't stand it. See the difference? Same situation. One response keeps your dignity intact. The other destroys it. When there's a real problem, approach it from preference, not demand. Say, I strongly prefer more quality time together, and if we can't work that out, I may choose to leave. Don't say, you must give me more time, or I'll be destroyed, or this proves I'm not good enough. Do you see how different that is? One is a clear boundary. The other is emotional manipulation born from desperation. And here's the ultimate rational belief. If this relationship ends, it will be sad, disappointing, and painful. I will grieve, and I will be okay. My worth is not determined by whether this person chooses me forever. This is emotional resilience. This is maturity. You can love someone deeply and still know you'd survive without them. That's not cold. That's healthy. I worked with a woman who realized her partner wasn't meeting her needs. She'd communicated clearly. She'd given it time. Nothing changed. And she had a choice. She could stay and keep demanding he change while making herself miserable. Or she could accept that he wasn't going to give her what she needed and leave. She chose to leave. And you know what? She grieved. She was sad. But she never felt worthless. She never thought, this means I'm unlovable. She thought, this relationship didn't work out. And that's unfortunate, but I'm still okay. That's rational thinking in action. Compare that to people who stay in relationships that make them miserable because they believe they need that person to feel okay. They twist themselves into pretzels, try and be good enough. They ignore their own needs. They accept terrible treatment. Why? Because they have an irrational belief that says, I can't survive without this person. And that belief keeps them stuck in hell. You can survive damn near anything. You just don't want to. And that's okay. But don't confuse preference with necessity. You prefer to be in a loving relationship. You don't need it to have worth or to be happy. When you get that distinction clear, you make better decisions. You don't settle out of fear. You don't stay where you're not valued. You don't lose yourself trying to keep someone who doesn't want to be kept. The worst thing that can happen is you'll be uncomfortable for a while. That's it. Not awful. Not unbearable. Uncomfortable. And you can handle discomfort. You've handled it before. You'll handle it again. Now here's where this gets really interesting. Because once you stop demanding certainty and start accepting yourself unconditionally, something weird happens in your relationships. You actually become genuinely more attractive. Let me explain. When you demand that someone prove you're irreplaceable, you become exhausting. Constant reassurance seeking, jealousy, insecurity, checking up on them, analyzing every word. That pushes people away. Nobody wants to be with someone who's constantly needy and anxious. I don't care how much they love you. It's draining. But when you're genuinely okay with or without them, when you're whole on your own, you're attractive because you're confident. You're not desperate. You're not clingy. You have energy for actual connection instead of constant anxiety management. You can be present. You can be fun. You can be intimate without fear. That's what makes relationships work. This is what I mean by the paradox. The less you need to be irreplaceable, the more valued you become. Because you're operating from abundance, not scarcity. You're thinking, I'm great, and if they don't see that, someone else will. Not in an arrogant way, just in a factual way. You know your worth. You don't need them to validate it. And here's the thing. You can't control whether they choose you, but you can control whether you show up as your best self. When you're not consumed by anxiety about being replaced, you have mental and emotional energy for the things that actually build connection. Humor, curiosity, vulnerability, growth. That's what keeps people interested, not your desperate attempts to make yourself indispensable. Let me explain what I mean by detachment. It's not cold. It's not uncaring. I deeply care about this relationship, and I don't need it to validate my existence. That's mature love. That's what secure people do. They're invested without being desperate. They care without being needy. They want the relationship without demanding it must work out or they're worthless. What do secure people do differently? They feel disappointment, not devastation. When their partner is distant, they think, that's annoying, not, that proves I'm unlovable. They communicate needs without demanding. They say, I'd really like more affection, not, you should be more affectionate or you don't really love me. They can tolerate their partner having a full life outside the relationship. They don't need to be the center of attention every second. They don't collapse when there's conflict. They see disagreement as normal, not as a threat to the entire relationship. And here's the thing. This comes from rational thinking, not personality. You're not born secure or insecure. You develop security by disputing irrational beliefs and building unconditional self-acceptance. Anyone can do this, including you. Compare two people. Person A says, do you still love me? Are you sure? What about now? Did you think about me today? Do you think she's prettier than me? Why didn't you text back right away? Person B says, hey, I noticed we haven't connected much this week. I'd love to plan a date night. Which person do you think their partner is more excited to be with? Which person do you think feels more secure? It's obvious, right? Person A is exhausting. They're creating distance while desperately trying to close it. Person B is calm, clear, and confident. They're addressing a real issue without making it about their worth. They're not demanding. They're inviting. That's attractive. That's secure. You can want someone without needing them. That's the goal. High frustration tolerance. That's what separates people who thrive from people who suffer. The ability to say, this is uncomfortable and I can handle it. The more you need validation, the less you get it. It's a cruel paradox, but it's real. Neediness repels. Confidence attracts. And confidence comes from rational thinking. All right, we've covered a lot here. You now know what's been making you feel replaceable, how to dispute those beliefs, and how to show up differently in your relationship. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final challenge that's going to test everything we just talked about. Let's recap what you now know. You feel replaceable not because you are replaceable, but because you're demanding absolute certainty and unconditional love, two things that don't exist. You've learned the ABC model. Events don't control your feelings. Your beliefs about events do. You've got specific disputation techniques to challenge those irrational beliefs in real time. You know how to tell the difference between anxiety and real problems. And you understand the paradox. The less desperately you need to be irreplaceable, the more valued you become. This isn't magic. This is work. You're going to have to dispute your irrational beliefs every single day until rational thinking becomes automatic. But I promise you, if you do this work, you will feel fundamentally different in your relationships. Not because your partner changed, because you change the way you think. Here's my challenge to you. The next time you feel that panic, that I'm replaceable feeling, I want you to stop and say this out loud. I am demanding certainty, and I'm not going to get it. I prefer to be chosen, but I don't need it to be okay. I can handle uncertainty. I accept myself unconditionally. Say it even if you don't believe it yet. Because repetition creates belief, and belief creates feeling. You got this. Now go do the work. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, Albert, I get the replaceability thing, but what about when I do everything right and my partner still doesn't appreciate me? I made an entire video about the one irrational belief that keeps you in relationships where you're undervalued. It's not what you think. In fact, most people are shocked when they realize they've been doing this to themselves for years. Click the video on your screen right now. It's called Why You Stay Where You're Not Wanted, and I'm going to show you exactly how to break that pattern. Go watch it right now.